Right, good morning, church. We're on the Be Happy campaign. Are you happy? If you're not happy, I rebuke you. Be happy. Okay. We got a cool little invitations. Thank you, Fang. And you ever made a mistake and then got unhappy? You ever done that? What a waste of time. Okay. So what I love about these is it actually says we're now going to have Sunday church at 10 p.m. Okay, which is obviously a typo that we all missed. But I thought it was a great point. We go, come to our church. We're so fired up. We meet at 10 o'clock at night. Good conversational point. You know, it's interesting. What makes us unhappy? So many things that make us unhappy are just downright stupid. Like, I mean, literally, maybe Fang's going, 10 o'clock, 10 a.m., 10 o'clock. You know, how many of us do that over something completely stupid? What a waste of time. You can never get that moment back. That actually also hurts, but amen. Okay, the title of today's lesson is To Be Like Jesus. Philippians 2. You know, what is your ambition? So often our unhappiness is rooted in we are trying to achieve the wrong thing in life. And we're always failing. First of all, most people are brought up with parents who keep telling us we fail. You're not good enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not this enough. You're not that enough. Our whole goal in life should be to be like Jesus. And understand this. As soon as that is your goal, you have bought into a life of complete and utter failure. Because you will never be like Jesus. So the goal is not to be Jesus, but it's to try and be like Jesus. You know, think about all the things, even as Christians. People go, I don't understand grace. Well, that's because you're trying to be Jesus, not be like Jesus. Really simple concept, but we get really messed up. So, for example, say I know the New Zealand mission team is out, they're trying to evangelize and bring as many people as possible. And you went out for 6 hours yesterday and you evangelized and nobody responded to you and somebody even said, I hate you, you're ugly, leave me alone. You I failed. No, you only failed if you got unhappy that that's what happened in your day. Because you just experienced what Jesus went through, which was consistent rejection. So actually, you have become like Jesus. If you respond happily. But if you respond in a sad or self-indulgent way, well, then you have failed because you have failed to be like Jesus. Because you see, I've been evangelizing a long time. So have a lot of you guys. I still don't know what brings somebody along. When the Bible says, you know, I sang a dirge for you. Well, hey, nobody came. I walked around moping. Nobody came. John the Baptist, prophet, enormous. Nobody liked him. Jesus was a drunkard. Nobody liked him. I mean, I don't get the world. You get the world. I don't get the world. What I do know is when I'm trying to be like Jesus, I can succeed at that every single day. I can go, I'm a little bit more like him. I can respond joyfully. You know, what we aim at determines our happiness. It really does. You aim at the wrong thing. We talked about this the other week. You know, I want that brother to fall in love with me. But what happens if he doesn't want to fall in love with you? Okay. You go, God, please help me be the sort of woman that would be a great wife for any brother that you choose. Now, I can work on that. I can't. You can work on that. Okay, I mean, all right. But you understand, when we set our mind right, then we can find joy. When we set our mind wrong, we won't find joy. So hence, today's title is To Be Like Jesus. Philippians chapter 2, actually, one of the most, I believe, challenging passages in the Bible. So point number one, pay it forward. Philippians 2 verse 1. It says, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any fellowship with the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and purpose. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourself. Each of you should not look only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others. There's a real, very straightforward call here. Give back. Don't focus on you. You give back. We receive so much as being a result of being a Christian. You know, there are three main reasons why people become Christians. I'm sure there's a myriad of little ones in between. But basically, this is the three reasons why people become Christians. I was talking to Hedgie about this yesterday. First of all, you meet a person who is actually already in love with God. They have a relationship with God, they're already religious, they're praying, and you study the Bible with them, and they find out that they're not right with God, and they go, I love God so much, wow, I'm just going to change and become a real Christian. Now, we all hope to meet some of those. They're quite rare today, okay? But that is one. In other words, they become a Christian because they just love God. The second one, and this was me, I thought I was a Christian, didn't really love God because I was smoking and sleeping around. I read the Bible, I went, oh my goodness, I'm going to burn in hell unless I change. I'm going to repent and become a Christian. So I didn't become a Christian because I loved God. I became a Christian because I feared hell. The third person is, they come along and they see all the benefits. And a lot of this is some of the atheists. They come along and go, great people, excited, happy. I read the Bible. This is going to help my life. And they actually become Christians for the benefits. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that because they're responding to the truth, which is Christianity is the right way to go. You can become a Christian for any one of those reasons. However, unless you move from loving the benefits to understanding there's a heaven and a hell, and then falling in love with God, you will never stay faithful. You just won't. Because the challenges come. And most Asians, let's be honest, you go, do you really believe in heaven and hell? No, I know the Bible says it, but I don't really emotionally get it. And it takes time to understand some beliefs. But unless you actually spend time and fall in love with God, you won't stay faithful. Well, it's the same with any relationship. You know, you start dating because you're sick and tired of being alone. Let's be honest. You're like, brother's house, possible marriage. I think I figured this one out. Okay. All right. That's why you start dating. But then you have to actually go, this relationship benefits both of us. And then you fall in love. But we all know when we get married, there are hard times. And it's the love that keeps you together. You know, we've got to take all the encouragement and we've got to pass it forward. We receive so much as Christians. We really do. Forgiveness. You ever figure that? People forgive you in the church all the time. You try treating people at your work like some of us do our brothers and sisters in our household and see how quickly you get fired. It's true. There's something really weird about humans. We mistreat those people that we think will forgive us. That's why families treat each other so badly. They go, my mum's got to forgive me. She's my mum. So I'll have a fit at her. It's true. And some of us actually treat Christians worse than non-Christians. You ever done that? Yeah. Marriage, you've had a big fight, the postman comes to the door, knock, knock. Hi, how are you? Close the door. It's like, surely we should be nice to the wife and not to the postman. You know what I mean? Okay, you should be nice to both of them. We need to encourage so much family. I think about the adventures. I mean, it was a phenomenal time to go to Samoa. It was, and I'll talk about it a little bit more. But what an adventurous life we live. To be called to love people brings adventure. It really does. Because you go to places like we help the homeless. We go to Manila and help, you know, the orphan. You end up doing so much more when your focus is to love people. Any comfort that you received. You know, when our life goes badly, this is where the kingdom really steps in. So often we go, what's the point in coming to church? I don't really get help from it. Just, Then there's a disaster in your life and the kingdom comes. Yeah. You know, maybe your wife is pregnant, give birth, all the sisters bring the food round. Tragedy in your family, everybody pulls together and gives the money. That's when you really see it. It's like insurance. We pay insurance and go, what do I pay medical insurance? Well, hopefully you're going to pay it and never have to use it. But at that time when there's a serious accident, you go, excuse me, here's the bill for $200,000. You go, thanks so much, I did my insurance. It's like that. And we've got to pass that forward. It was really deeply moving just to be there with Scotty. And we'd go outside and we'd pray and we'd talk, go back in, go outside and pray. I was there to comfort Scotty. But as the Bible says, you know, blessed are you who mourn. I gained a lot of comfort from it myself. And we gained a deeper relationship. Now, if you have any fellowship in the Spirit, so often we don't really sort of give the Spirit its due. So much happens in life, it just happens. And we just go, oh, I'm a pretty lucky guy, aren't I? No, the Spirit's working in your life. You suddenly get a job out of the blue. I remember when Ian his old boss on Facebook went, hey, you need a job? Yeah, I really do, actually. Can I have that job? And he's been in a number of years. You know, Ashley Soto arrives here. Yeah, I'm working. I start on Monday. I mean, is that us? Is that our power? Or is that just comfort and the love of God through his Spirit? What about tenderness? You know, we've all been treated so kindly by God and his followers, especially when we're in sin. Have you ever felt that love? Kerry and I were with somebody who was not being particularly nice to us recently. And they said, well, why are you so happy and I'm mistreating you? You go, well, one, we've had kids, amen. But two, we've been there. This is not personal. Yeah. Your sin, the only person when you sin that you sin against is God. Yeah. That's it. You may be critical towards me or somebody else. The only one you're actually hurting is you and God. Yeah. Sin is not personal. It's stupid, but it's not personal. And I just got to remember how much I've sinned against others. You know, we've been called to give so much because we have been given so much. And I think sometimes we need to take stock and we go, you know, this is why we take communion. We go, remember how much Jesus has done for us. That's why we give to others. Here it talks about dying to self. It says, do nothing out of selfish ambition. Sometimes we actually forget what the word nothing means. It means not one thing. Don't do a single thing in your life out of the root of selfish ambition. That's actually quite hard. So we have a young group on Saturday mornings, and it's the young men, and you know, we have some discussions and discipling, and we were working out. We spent an hour working out, and what I like to understand about men is if you get them distracted, their real heart comes out. Yeah. You know what I mean? You get them playing basketball, all of a sudden you see who's competitive and not. But when you're sort of sitting around the room, all the men are trying to be godly and give them a basketball. Okay, we'll see who's a sinner right here. Okay. It's interesting because what I'm trying to do with that young group is understand everyone in that group is a sinner. Everybody in that group, including me, or especially me, has problems. We're not there to beat up on each other. We're there to get each other to heaven. So Ray's been the latest addition, and Ray's only a young Christian. And Ray struggles with selfish ambition. Why? Because he was converted at 30, and what else do you have to motivate you as a non-Christian but selfish ambition? Yeah. Right? What else is there? Greed, selfish ambition. I mean, there's something. So I go, guys, he's got selfish ambition. It's not, I mean, it's sin, but it's not a big issue. Don't be surprised here. Let's just help him. So I give them little talks to do every week, and I film them every week, so we go back and watch each other. You know, that's really painful, yes, okay. So last week we watched Ray, and then we watched Chris, etc. And so Ray's got to learn, okay, and if you get in that group, you can realize I'm going to use your sin, okay. Ray's learning how to have ambition, but spiritually, and that's actually a really hard thing. As a young Christian, I was particularly given to selfish ambition. So he got to do a little talk on why people talk so much about themselves. See, before I said that, you all wanted to be in the Young Prophets. Now you don't want to be in the Young Prophets. Why? Because we're so trained by the world. And when you get an older man who becomes a Christian, he's more worldly. Shouldn't shock us. Should go, right, let's just work on it. Come on. Let's just work on it. You know, we've got to die to our selfish ambition. But we do need ambition to do great things. So as we polish Ray up, you'll see him doing more and more. All right. So we have needs and we have desires. And we've got to make sure that they're met, but never at the expense of us doing badly spiritually. We've got to make sure we have pure hearts. So what are the practicals to dying to selfishness? Well, when you're tired, you give in to moodiness. I think that's one of the biggest ones, isn't it? I was giving until 10 p.m. and then at 1 minute past 10, I turned into a demon-possessed woman. Okay. Come on, Joe. Really listening to people when you don't think you have time. You know that phone? And you're thinking, I'm trying to love you. just turn it over.
Yeah.
Okay? Really focus and listen. Lan is excellent at this. If you ever watch Lan with somebody, there is nobody else but Lan and that person. It normally involves physical contact. She gets their arm and does that to it. All right? But it's interesting. I'm always ready to learn. That's a good thing. She's like, I am with you. I am focused on my conversation with you. I saw her in Mex Branch. She was having disciple time with Charlene. People walking past. There was no, hey, hey, hey. There was, I'm with Charlene. That's it. That's what I'm doing. We can all look at other people and go, they've got a better quality than we have. Let me imitate that. All right? Wanting to encourage others more than yourself. I think I've told the story before. There was a brother in an old church in Birmingham. There's 300 people, and he said, I want to see how loving people are. So he stood on midweek like this for the whole night to see who would hug him. And no one hugged him because they thought, he's looking weird, I don't want to hug him. And then he went, you see, nobody loves me. Nobody hugged me. They're like, well, we thought there was something wrong with you. You know, you want to hug, go up to somebody and go, hey, give us a hug. You've got to be focused on others. Selfish things people do today that were not around in Jesus' day. Play on the phone when in the company of others. How do I know that? There were no phones in Jesus' day. But do you imagine, you know, Jesus is there, and maybe Aaron's leading the Bible talk, and you imagine Jesus going, I'm just going to check out what's on Wi-Fi and Google. No, Jesus will be in the moment. Right. It is disrespectful, and we all get tempted to do it, don't we? To actually be on your phone rather than focusing on the group at the moment. Yeah. What about retreating in your own bedroom when others are in the house? What I really loved about the Samoan culture is it is void of selfishness publicly. There is no bedrooms. Samoan houses, all right, don't have walls. They are a roof with posts. Why? First of all, to let the air through, and secondly, nobody owns anything. So there's nothing to steal. That is the traditional home in Samoa. And you go, there is no personal space. They just all sit there and go, hey, and they just talk. Now, there are modern houses, as materialism is getting in, that have brick walls, but there's a real great culture there of, there is no such thing as personal space. There's also no such thing as hot water, but which I found out even in the hotel. It promises it. It goes, you know, turn right, you know, it goes sort of that blue for cold and red for hot. And I was like, this is going to be good. I'm going to have hot water. Okay. It's like, you know how you leave it for a few minutes, you go, this ain't happening. And so Scotty would tell us all these stories about, yeah, we have a shower outside. This is Scotty's shower outside. There is a pipe, okay, that goes like that. And you know when you have a tap and sometimes it doesn't come out great, so it goes, that is what the shower is, all right? And then there are sort of trees in a thing around it and a little hole here, and they put their skirts on and they go, hey, da, 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 da. There is no personal space. And I wonder why the family is so tight. Here's another thing. If you think we're committed, it is mandatory on the island of Samoa to have family devotional with the Bible from 6 to 9 every night a week, 7 nights a week. Even I was like, that's serious business. But you know what? We've got to get rid of this entitlement to personal space.
Wow. Come on.
Okay? There is a time for it, but definitely not as much as we do. Yeah. Point number 2, the standard is Christ. You know, because you've just got a whole lot of bad attitudes that this is far too high. But remember, the title of the sermon is to be like Jesus. Yeah. It's not to be like the most spiritual person you know on this earth. Because that's a really low standard. Yeah. All right? The standard is Christ. Philippians 2:5. Your attitude should be the same as that of Christ Jesus, who being in very nature God did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on the cross. Therefore, God exalted him to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow, in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Our whole attitude should be the same as Christ. Not our actions, our attitude. Really big difference, isn't there? You can evangelize with a really bad attitude. You can pray with a bad attitude. You can read your Bible going, I can't wait till I finish this chapter and then I can go off and play my video games. Okay? That's not it's about attitude. We're called to have his mindset. Think about this. Jesus was in very nature God. And instead of trying to go everybody, hey, I'm God. I'm God. You see this on some of the, how Jesus was on some of the superstars, you know. Cristiano Ronaldo walks in a room. I'm Ronaldo. And there's an expectation that everybody should almost stop, just bow down and talk to the guy and go, whoa, Jesus was God. But he didn't walk around going, hey, I'm God, come on, talk to me, you know, give me something, just worship me. It wasn't about him. It was like, where can I serve? Yeah. There was no air of entitlement from Jesus at all. That is mind-blowing. I don't know about you. I struggle with entitlement just as much as the next person. You know, maybe it's like, I'm old. Come on, give me some respect. We're working out. Look, you know, these things don't work as well. Okay. Now, give me some, you know, I'm old. I always said to guys, I've got an excuse. I'm old. You don't. Get up. Okay. But it doesn't matter where it is. But Jesus was just like, where do I serve? Yeah. Jesus became a nobody so others could become a somebody. Yeah. That is a really hard teaching, isn't it? What about me? There's a very famous Australian song, what about me? It isn't fair. But isn't that our hearts? It's like, I mean, did nobody notice that I was depressed today? Where were the hugs? I mean, you ever felt like that? I've felt like that. See, I'm crying. Did you not notice? There's an axe out of my head. I mean, give me some attention. Jesus will fix it. Amen. But his whole life, in Hebrews 5:7, it says, during the days of Jesus' life on earth, he offered up prayers and petitions with loud cries and tears to the one who could save him from death, and he was heard because of his reverent submission. Although he was a son, he learned obedience from what he suffered. And once made perfect, he became the source of eternal salvation for all who obey him. You know, this is the real prayer. I want to be more like Jesus so I can have a bigger impact. Right, get ready to suffer. That is not the gospel of today. Suffering does lead to happiness, deep happiness. Doesn't listen to that, doesn't lead to that sort of shallow, are you happy? Yeah. But so many people are happy shallow, but deep down they are miserable when they close that door at night. But you know what it's like. You go out and do a project for the poor, and you know you're dealing with all the things in your heart and going, I don't really want to be here, and I'm really denying myself. And you go home at night and you go, that was the best day of my life. Yeah. That's the deep joy that we're talking about here. You know, we've got to be a servant. What does it mean to be a servant? Basically, it's a person that works without pay. All right? And we're a voluntary organization. What are the characteristics of a servant? Well, a servant wraps their schedule around their master. They're not the center of attention. They ask their master's permission to do something. They're constantly thinking about what would their master want them to do. And that's what, you know, what would Jesus want me to do? So, will I be offered a job or go to Bible talk? Well, what would Jesus want you to do? I've got to do my project for Monday or go to church. What would Jesus want you to do? I mean, that nails it. Not as Joe or the church want you. What does Jesus want you to do? Yeah. Well, I've got no money. I'm tempted and I feel like God needs me to get money. No, God will always allow you to be tested to see what's inside your heart. Well, I need to rescue myself from this financial situation. Says who. Says who. Every time you rescue yourself, God goes, right, you don't need me. And then you get bitter around, why didn't you rescue me? Well, you didn't need me. God actually puts you in tough situations to make your faith grow. What is the opposite of being a servant? Because there are only two choices. It's being a master. So you are either God's servant or you are your own master. And there is nothing in between. I'd much rather worship the real master who's in control whether I think it or not. And then it says, humble yourself. You know, it is our responsibility to humble ourselves. It's not our leaders, it's not our disciples, it's not our friends, it's not even God's, although God will humble us. Humility is shown in being eager to do whatever is asked of you. Doesn't matter what the job is. Well, I'm the greatest song leader, and they've asked me to do children's ministry. And who cares if you're the greatest song leader? You may have the best voice, but the best song leader is the one with the best attitude. You know what it's like. We've got some people come up, especially at leaders meeting, who just can't sing for a toffee. All right? And I'm not going to mention any names. But they come up here and go, it's my one chance. Let's wait. And we're all fired up because they're fired up. And we sort of go, turn the mic off quick because they've got a terrible voice, but we're fired up. It's the attitude that God is after. You know, are you resistant? Servants aren't resistant. Good servants. There are a lot of people that are being sent out on the mission field by Christmas. That leaves enormous amount of holes in leadership. I know some of you are going, I feel like I'm going to be asked to come into leadership in January. Well, if you've already figured that one out, and God has really put it on your heart, why aren't you in leadership now? Do you have to wait to be asked? Servants aren't. They wait there, don't they? It's like a waiter at a table. They're just like, anything I can do? Bread, sir? Butter, sir? You don't go up to a waiter, oi, come here, I want some butter. You go, that's a bad restaurant. Are you eager? Are you ready? Are you willing? You know, you've got to take personal responsibility. Philippians 2:12. Therefore, dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you to will and to act according to his good purpose. Do everything without grumbling or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God without fault in a crooked and depraved generation, in which you shine like stars in the universe as you hold out the word of life, in order that I may boast on the day of Christ that I did not run or labor in vain. But even if I am being poured out like a drink offering on the sacrifice and service coming from your faith, I'm glad and rejoice with all of you, so that you too should be glad and rejoice with me. God is very clear here. Your salvation is your issue. You can complain and argue all day long about how mistreated you are, how neglected you are, and blame your leaders, and blame your disciples, and your flatmate, and your wife. But you know what? The only one responsible for your salvation is you. Full stop. I mean, it is the nature of sinful man. You know, Adam blamed Eve blamed the serpent. The truth of it was Eve's fault for listening to the serpent, and it was a man's fault for not stopping Eve. It definitely was not God's fault. Right. So God has either allowed you to be in a situation, or has put you there on purpose for you to figure it out. Yeah. But it is your issue. Two things I've learned to help me cope in life. Life is not fair. It's not. Like, who defines fairness? And the only justice you will ever receive is on Judgment Day. Yeah. There is no justice on earth. You think about the law system. I don't get it. Somebody doesn't pay parking taxes or parking fines for 3 years. They get 10 years in prison. Somebody molests a child and gets 2 years. I'm like, I don't get that. Why? Because man makes up the rules, not God. But on Judgment Day, there will be a leveling. And that's why we have deep happiness. We go, you know what, I'm not going to receive justice here. If you are looking for justice on earth, you will always be unhappy. Yeah. Just get over it. Just go, life is not fair. You know, to follow Jesus means to be called to love others when they don't love you. to forgive others when everything in your emotions says, I should not or I cannot. And to keep no record of wrongs ever. Go, I've forgiven him, I'm forgiven him. And then a year later you go, I remember when that Brandon man, he didn't smile at me at midweek. You go, really? That's in your heart for a year? But it's amazing what is in our heart, isn't it? That pops out. You have to get yourself to the point that Paul does, which is, man, I am just going to serve and give myself completely. You know, things that I've worked out in my life to keep me saved. Bible studies and prayer will negatively affect your mood and how you treat others, or bad Bible studies and prayers will affect your moods. I was reading Elevate, the book that Elena wrote, and there's a really great quote in there. She says, so often in my marriage, I'm a little unhappy, and my husband would go, have you had your quiet time? And then invariably it would be no, so I go and have my quiet time with God. But sometimes I've already had my quiet time with God. And then I realized that it wasn't long enough. You know, I think actually the older you get as a Christian, the more you're in tune with how much prayer and Bible study you actually need. You see, sometimes you're a single person and you can sleep in a bit and you can eat well food and there's not too much stress. But once you have kids and all the stress comes on you, you don't need less. It's one of those things we go, I don't have time to have long times with God. No. This is a time more than any you need long times with God. Martin Luther used to say, I've got such a busy day, I need to spend the first 5 hours of it in prayer. That was one of his famous quotes. Wonder why he had such a big impact. You know, other things. Never resist God's will in your life. Doesn't matter how much it hurts, because he's going to push you there anyway. It literally is, it's like God's pushing you, and you can either go with it, or you can try and go, ee, but he's always going to keep pushing. He's more powerful than you. That's the bottom line. It's like going in a river. If you try and go upstream and swim, you're going to get hurt. You go, well, if I go downstream, I'm going to get hurt too. Well, yeah. But at least you can see what's coming. Because if you're trying to go upstream, you're actually going backwards anyway, and you can't see the rocks you're about to hit. So you've got a better chance going with the stream. Some of us here literally are resisting becoming Christians. You know, we were in a study yesterday, and Obed, who is our now scapegoat for people who take time to become Christians, because it took 18 months. But he said this very profound thing. He said, what I realized after becoming a Christian was, I didn't become a Christian because I really wanted to see if this was true. I'd read some negative things about the church online. And he said, I realized that after a month, I realized what was online was wrong, and this church was loving and doing the truth. And the 17 months I spent thinking about that did not change my opinion at all. And I could have become a Christian after a month. Well, maybe we'll be using that analogy for a long time. But if you're struggling, you know what's right. What is it? Is it doubt? Is it fear? What is it? The sad thing is Obed could have had a bigger impact. In those 18 months, he could have helped somebody become a Christian. I don't care how long it takes people to become Christian, but there is a time of, you know, we've only got one life. You can't have those 17 months back again. Now, God will use it because God is loving. But what is really stopping you? You know, we've got to have a good heart. It talks about here, no grumbling. It's amazing when you try and do something, how much grumbling comes out, isn't it? So we work out on Saturday mornings with all these bravado men. And it's amazing when you start to try and do something, how much grumbling comes. All these weights are so heavy. So what we do is I've got the leaves come in the backyard. So anytime anybody grumbles, they have to pick up 5 handfuls of leaves. So my backyard looks fantastic right now. And we're like, grumbling, 5 handfuls, okay. But I'm like, I'm orchestrating this, all right? So I'm like, I ain't grumbling. And then before you know it, Scotty's like, Joe, did you just grumble? I went, all right, 5 handfuls, off I go. I mean, even when you focus on not grumbling, you can still grumble. It's so deep in there. But what I love about it is when you have people around you that disciple you, you can drive any sin outside of your life. All right? Aaron didn't get to really pick up anything because he was quiet the whole day. He figured out, he was just like, Sarah, what's up? You know, Aaron is just like, no, I'm not. Maybe there's a lesson learned there. Okay. Characteristics of a great disciple. Coming in for a landing. Philippians 2, verse 19. It says, I hope in the Lord Jesus to send Timothy to you, that I also may be cheered when I receive news about you. I have no one else like him who takes a genuine interest in your welfare. You can read there's another great disciple there, but this is amazing. Paul says, when it comes to Timothy, I've got no one like him. You know, as I was away, I was able to look at some old photos and go through it. And I said, it's a good one. And there's one of me preaching at staff, and there's Sean in the background taking notes. And I sent it to her and said, this is yours and my relationship. You're my Timothy. You're my guy here. Like that's what it's like. You preach like me now. I can leave things with you. People are like, I prefer Sean's preaching to Joe, but I won't really tell him. Okay, you know. I came back and staff meeting was like, it was what? He said such radical things. It scared us, man. I was like, so basically you're saying you prefer his preaching to mine. Okay, well, okay, I get it, okay. There is a time like Paul was about to die, and Timothy was ready to step up. But I have many Timothys in my life. I have Scotty, a deep bond. I can go on. Chi, obviously, is coming back for the conference. All of our heroes in that way. But you think about it. If you set your mind on whoever is mentoring you and goes, my goal in life is for my mentor, my disciple to go, I have no one like him. Just that decision would change you. So often we're like, I've got so many problems in my leaders or my mentors' relationship. You know why? Because you're focused on them changing, not on you changing. That's the problem. There's a great parable about taking the plank out of your eye. There is only one person you can change, and that's you. Everybody else, you hope they will change. But you don't actually have the power to change anybody. God does. But could you really say that? Why was he so great? He was genuine. There was nothing false about him. He was just, this is who I am. That's how I really feel about Scotty. Scotty is, you know, people are, oh, he's so giving, you know, he always sleeps on the floor and gives everybody's bed, and you go home and goes, everybody sleeps on the floor in Samoa. I mean, we've got a dog, and when it's hot, it sleeps on the tiles, right? And in Scotty's house, they're tiles. We got home after one night, every Samoan is sleeping on the tiles like a dog go, it's so hot, I'm on the tile. I'm like, I get Scotty now. But even like this, so in Samoa, the elders eat first. And you're not an elder until you're married. Okay, so they put out the table, and we're all sat down, and we eat and talk until we are finished till 10:30 at night. And only then do the children, and I'm talking 35-year-old people, do they get to eat. Wow. There is a deep respect for elders. So Bible talk, I was like, Scotty, what's happened, man? I'm going last again. What's going on? I said, not here, bro, not here, bro. Okay. But there are some things that, and a lot of us have these and some of us don't. Without doubt, the culture in Samoa, his parents, have put into Scotty some very, very special things. So he is far above many of us because of his background. That's not something to be embittered about. That's something to go, I want to submit myself to his level of godliness and go, wow. Have different qualities. Some people are generous. Some people are bold evangelists. But that's for us to go, you know what? I'm going to be a disciple to them. You don't have to be somebody's best disciple just because they do or don't disciple you. You can make a decision to be mentored by anybody in your life. You just phone them up and get time with them. You know, there's nobody else like him. In conclusion, to be like Jesus, you've got to pay it forward. We have so much joy. I was proud of Mark. You know, he's been going to these funky dancing classes, like that. But he's paying it forward. He's going there and he's bringing visitors from his funky dancing class. That's paying it forward, right? You go, I'm enjoying my life. You dance, I dance. You dance in this direction. The standard is Christ. Stop comparing yourself to everybody else. That is such a low standard. Such a low standard. Take personal responsibility. I had this great conversation. I think it was Aaron. I said, this is what you've got to learn about being a man. If you're married or you're leading women, and their ministry does well or their life does well, it is to their glory. And if it does badly, it's your fault because you're the man. He's like, oh. I said, yeah, that's leadership for you. When everybody else does it well around you, that's to their glory. You take responsibility. You're the leader. That's the same with your personal life. You're doing badly spiritually, it's on you. Were you flogged and crucified this week? I don't think so. So are we reacting like Jesus? And then characteristics of a great disciple. No one else like him. Here's your challenge for the week. Sit down with your mentor and ask them, am I your favorite disciple? If not, why not? I have just, well, those oohs of pride there. Ooh, I'm proud, I'm proud. You know, to be like Jesus. If you want to be like Jesus, that won't be a hard question for you. There's a, everybody there. Our goal, guys, is every one of us can make a decision this week. I'm going to be more like Jesus than I was last week. If you do that, doesn't matter how far you fall, the Lord will be pleased with you. Amen.